Lyra hit the stone floor hard, the breath tearing from her lungs as a boot slammed into her ribs. "Stay down, Omega," a voice sneered. She curled instinctively, arms around her head as another kick landed. Pain shot through her side, sharp enough to blur the dim torchlight in the lower tunnel. The fortress above roared with life, warriors training, servants rushing, guards changing shifts. But down here in the forgotten corridors beneath Ironfang Keep, no one would hear her. No one ever did. Lyra had survived 2 years in this place by following 3 rules. Speak only when ordered. Never meet an alpha's eyes. Hide her scent. She had followed them perfectly. Until tonight. "Look at her." Torek Vance laughed, grabbing her by the hair and forcing her head up. The ghost servant finally made a sound. Blood filled Lyra's mouth. She tasted iron and fear. "I didn't," she whispered weakly. The slap cut her words short. "Don't talk," Brenner Hale growled. "You Omegas only speak when someone better allows it." Cedric Marr leaned lazily against the stone wall, watching with cruel amusement. "This one's perfect," he said. "Weak. Quiet. Invisible." Lyra's stomach twisted. They weren't doing this for fun. This was deliberate. "A message," Cedric continued calmly. Torek kicked her again. "For the Alpha King." Lyra's vision swam. Kael Thornridge, the ruler of Ironfang Keep. A man she had seen only twice from a distance. Tall, silent, terrifying. Every wolf in the fortress feared him. But Lyra had never imagined she would become part of some twisted game meant for him. "I'm just a servant," she whispered desperately. Brenner crouched beside her, his grin cruel. "Exactly." His fist struck her jaw. Darkness flickered at the edges of her vision. Torek leaned down, his voice low. "When the king finds you like this," he murmured, "maybe he'll realize his fortress isn't as secure as he thinks." Another kick. Another burst of pain. And then nothing. The tunnel fell silent except for the dripping of water from the ceiling. Lyra lay motionless on the cold stone. Broken. Forgotten. Exactly the way she had always lived. Hours later, heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors of Ironfang Keep. Kael Thornridge walked alone. The Alpha King rarely slept. Tonight was no different. The fortress rested under his rule. Thousands of wolves inside its towering walls. But Kael trusted silence more than comfort. He inspected his domain himself. Torchlight flickered across stone walls as he descended into the lower halls. Something felt wrong. A scent brushed his senses. Faint. Fragile. Omega. Kael stopped walking. His sharp eyes narrowed. Omegas rarely came this deep into the fortress. Especially alone. The scent reached him again, mixed with something darker. Blood. His jaw tightened. He followed the scent into a narrow tunnel rarely used by the pack. The air grew colder. The scent stronger. And then he saw her. A small figure lay crumpled against the stone floor. Bruised. Blood staining her clothes. Barely breathing. Kael froze. Something inside him snapped. He knelt beside her slowly. The Omega's scent was soft, almost hidden beneath bitter herbs. She had been masking herself. Trying to stay unnoticed. His gaze hardened. Who had done this? Lyra stirred faintly as his shadow fell over her. Her eyelids fluttered. Golden eyes met his. For one brief second, fear flooded her expression. "Please," she whispered hoarsely. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." Kael felt something twist violently in his chest. Trouble? She thought she was the problem? His voice was dangerously quiet. Who did this? Lyra's gaze dropped immediately. "Omega shouldn't accuse warriors," she murmured weakly. The answer only fueled his fury. Kael stood, lifting her effortlessly into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Too light. Too fragile. His grip tightened. By the time he reached the upper halls, the guards at the entrance stiffened. The sight of their Alpha King carrying a bleeding Omega sent shock through the corridor. "Call the healer," Kael ordered. His voice was calm. Too calm. The guards moved instantly. Inside the healer's chamber, the old wolf named Edrin rushed forward. What happened? Kael placed Lyra gently on the bed. You tell me, he said coldly. Edrin examined her quickly, his expression grim. Broken ribs, he muttered. Severe bruising. She's lucky to be alive. Kael's eyes darkened. Lucky. The word burned in his mind. Lyra stirred faintly again. Her fingers curled weakly against the blanket. Kael noticed the movement. He stepped closer. Her voice barely rose above a breath. I'm sorry. Kael frowned. For what? Lyra's eyes remained closed. For being seen. Something deep inside the Alpha King ignited. And in that moment, the entire fortress unknowingly stepped onto a path of blood. Morning arrived with tension hanging thick in the air. Word spread quickly through Ironfang Keep. The Alpha King was furious. No one knew why, but every wolf felt it. Kael Thornridge stood in the center of the stone courtyard, his massive frame still as a statue. Around him, hundreds of pack members gathered in uneasy silence. 3 warriors were dragged forward in chains. Biran Norhale, Torek Vance, Cedric Mar. Their confidence faded as they saw the Alpha King waiting. Kael's voice cut through the courtyard like a blade. You attacked someone inside my fortress. Torek forced a laugh. It was just an Omega. The temperature of the entire courtyard seemed to drop. Kael stepped forward slowly. His gaze never left them. Exactly. Torek's smile faltered. Kael turned to the watching pack. The law of Ironfang Keep is simple. His voice remained calm. No wolf spills blood within these walls without my permission. The warriors shifted nervously. Cedric spoke quickly. She's nothing. A servant. Kael's expression hardened. You're right. The courtyard fell silent. Then the Alpha King drew his blade. And you're even less. The first scream echoed across the fortress walls. And Ironfang Keep learned exactly how far their king would go when someone under his protection was harmed. The scream ended abruptly as Brenner Hale collapsed to the stone courtyard, blood spreading across the gray floor. Silence crashed over the gathered wolves. No one moved. No one breathed. Kael Thornridge stood over the body, his blade dripping slowly. Torek Vance stared in shock. You killed him. Kael didn't answer. He simply turned his gaze toward the remaining 2 warriors. That look alone made several betas in the crowd step back instinctively. Cedric Mar swallowed hard. Alpha, it was just a lesson. We were showing the pack that your rule isn't. His words ended when Kael grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the stone pillar beside them. You thought hurting a defenseless Omega would weaken me? Kael asked quietly. Cedric struggled to breathe. Torek's bravado vanished completely. Please, Torek said quickly. We didn't know she mattered. Kael's eyes turned cold. She matters because she lives under my roof. The courtyard fell deeper into silence. The Alpha King released Cedric only long enough to draw his blade again. 2 more swift strikes. 2 more bodies hit the stone. The message was unmistakable. Kael wiped the blade clean with a cloth handed to him by a guard. Then he faced the watching pack. His voice carried across the courtyard. Let this be remembered. No one dared look away. Inside Ironfang Keep, every wolf answers to me. His gaze swept the crowd slowly. And anyone who harms what belongs to this fortress answers with their life. The bodies were dragged away. But the stain remained. Bright red against the stone. Inside the healer's chamber, Lyra slowly opened her eyes. Pain greeted her instantly. Her ribs burned every time she breathed. The room smelled of herbs and warm firewood. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then she remembered the tunnel, the beating, the blood. Fear rushed back. She tried to sit up. A hand gently pushed her shoulder back down. Don't move, Edrin the healer said. Lyra froze. Her gaze shifted to the side. And her heart nearly stopped. Kael Thornridge stood near the window, watching her. She immediately lowered her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered again. Kael frowned. That seems to be your favorite sentence. Lyra said nothing. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Kael spoke. Why were you in the lower tunnels? I was delivering supplies, she said quietly. To who? The storage chambers. Kael studied her carefully. Even injured, she looked like she expected punishment. He crossed the room slowly. Lyra felt his presence before she saw him. Her wolf instincts screamed submission. You hide your scent, Kael said. It wasn't a question. Lyra hesitated. Yes. Why? She hesitated again. Because omegas who are noticed usually suffer for it. The honesty surprised him. Kael crouched beside the bed. For 2 years you lived in my fortress. Lyra nodded faintly. And I never saw you. That was the idea, she whispered. Something strange stirred inside him. A pull he couldn't explain. His wolf shifted uneasily beneath the surface. Lyra suddenly stiffened. Her breathing quickened. Kael noticed immediately. What is it? Her eyes widened. No. The scent hit him at the same moment. Soft. Warm. Intoxicating. Mate. Kael froze. The word echoed violently in his mind. His wolf surged forward, recognition blazing through his senses. Lyra looked horrified. You feel it too, she whispered. Kael said nothing. The truth sat heavily between them. Fated mates. His gaze sharpened. Why are you afraid? Lyra let out a weak laugh. Because this is a disaster. Kael's eyebrow lifted. You're bonded to the Alpha King, he said. Lyra shook her head. I'm bonded to a target. Her words were painfully calm. Everyone will see me as your weakness. Kael leaned closer. And weaknesses get destroyed. He studied her face for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. If you had died in that tunnel. His voice trailed off. Lyra looked up despite herself. Kael's expression was unreadable. A part of me would have died with you. The room fell silent again. Lyra didn't know how to respond. Her entire life had taught her she was disposable. Yet the most powerful wolf in the region was telling her otherwise. She looked away quickly. You shouldn't say things like that. Why? Because wolves might believe you. Kael almost smiled. Days passed. Lyra healed slowly. But the atmosphere inside Ironfang Keep changed. Whispers spread through the halls. The Alpha King had executed 3 warriors over an omega. Some wolves respected it. Others saw danger. And one wolf saw opportunity. Ronan Blackmore watched the fortress courtyard from the balcony above. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Ambitious. He had served under Kael for years. But he had never liked the Alpha King's rule. A warrior stepped beside him. You've heard the rumors, the beta said. Ronan smirked. Oh, I've heard more than rumors. His eyes remained fixed on the courtyard. A king who risks instability over an omega? The beta hesitated. You think the pack will turn? Ronan's smile widened slowly. They just need a reason. Later that evening, the council chamber filled with tension. Kael stood at the center of the room. The senior wolves of Ironfang pack gathered around the table. Ronan Blackmore entered last. He didn't bow. The gesture didn't go unnoticed. Kael's eyes flicked toward him. You have something to say, the Alpha King said calmly. Ronan folded his arms. Yes. The room grew quiet. You killed 3 warriors over a servant. Kael didn't respond. Ronan stepped forward. You claim strength, he continued. But strength doesn't look like this. His voice rose. It looks like weakness. Several wolves shifted uncomfortably. Kael remained perfectly still. Ronan pointed toward the hallway leading to the healer's chambers. The pack sees it too. Your judgment is clouded. His voice sharpened. A ruler who protects an omega like treasure invites chaos. The room held its breath. Kael spoke softly. Are you challenging my rule? Ronan met his gaze without hesitation. Yes. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Ronan continued. I challenge you for leadership of Ironfang Keep. The words hung in the air like thunder. Kael tilted his head slightly. A duel then? Ronan smiled. To the death. Kael nodded once. Tomorrow. Outside the chamber, Lyra stood frozen. She had heard everything. Her chest tightened painfully. Her presence had started this. War was coming. And it was her fault. She whispered to herself softly. I won't be the reason he falls. Her decision formed in that moment. She wouldn't hide anymore. Even if it meant facing the entire pack. Morning came heavy over Ironfang Keep. The sky above the fortress was pale gray, and the cold wind sweeping through the courtyard carried the sharp scent of anticipation. Word had spread through every hall and chamber. The Alpha King had accepted a challenge. And by sunset, only one alpha would remain standing. Wolves gathered in the stone courtyard, forming a wide circle around the combat ground. Warriors lined the walls, betas stood near the gates, and servants watched from the edges, whispering nervously. At the center stood Kael Thornridge. Still, calm, dangerous. Across from him waited Ronan Blackmore, rolling his shoulders as if warming up for sport. This didn't have to happen, Ronan said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. Kael didn't respond. Ronan smirked. All of this for an Omega? Some wolves shifted awkwardly. Others watched with interest. Ronan continued, his voice carrying through the courtyard. A king who lets his emotions rule him puts the entire pack at risk. Kael finally spoke. Are you finished? Ronan laughed. Not quite. He raised his voice even higher. Tell them why you're really fighting. Kael's expression didn't change. Because you challenged me. Ronan shook his head slowly. No. Because of her. His hand gestured toward the fortress entrance. Every wolf turned. And that was when Lyra Vale stepped into the courtyard. A wave of murmurs swept through the pack. Is that the Omega? The one from the tunnels? She shouldn't be here. Lyra's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the whispers. Her ribs still hurt with every step. But she kept walking. Straight into the center of the courtyard. Straight toward the Alpha King. Kael's eyes narrowed slightly. Lyra, he said quietly. She stopped beside him. Up close, she could feel the strength radiating from him. The power of an Alpha King. But today she refused to shrink from it. Ronan laughed loudly. Well, look at that. His voice dripped with mockery. The king's weakness arrives on cue. Lyra felt dozens of eyes staring at her. Waiting. Judging. She took a breath. Then she spoke. I'm not his weakness. Her voice trembled slightly, but it carried across the courtyard. Ronan raised an eyebrow. Oh. Lyra forced herself to keep going. For 2 years I lived here as a ghost. Silence fell. No one saw me. No one cared. Her hands trembled, but she clenched them. I stayed quiet. I stayed invisible. She lifted her chin. But I'm done hiding. Ronan scoffed. You think standing there makes you brave? Lyra looked straight at him. No. Her voice steadied. I think living in fear for 2 years and still standing makes me brave. A few wolves in the crowd exchanged glances. Ronan rolled his eyes. You're still just an Omega. Lyra nodded. Yes. Then she took one small step closer to Kael. But I'm his Omega. The courtyard erupted with murmurs. Ronan's smile faded. Lyra turned to the watching wolves. I won't kneel behind him like a shadow. Her voice grew stronger. If anyone here believes he's weak because of me. She gestured toward Ronan. Then let them watch. Silence returned. Kael looked down at her. Something fierce burned in his eyes. Go back inside, he said quietly. Lyra shook her head. No. Kael frowned. You're injured. And you're about to fight for me. Her gaze softened slightly. The least I can do is stand here. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kael exhaled slowly. Stubborn Omega. Lyra almost smiled. Across the courtyard, Ronan clapped slowly. How touching. His eyes hardened. Let's finish this. The duel began without another word. Ronan attacked first. His claws slashed through the air as he lunged forward. Kael moved like a shadow. Steel flashed as their blades collided. The sound echoed across the courtyard. Ronan fought like a brute. Fast, aggressive, relentless. Kael fought like a king. Precise. Controlled. Deadly. The two alphas circled each other, strikes landing, blood beginning to stain the stone. The watching wolves remained silent. Every movement mattered. Every mistake could mean death. Ronan lunged again, managing to slice Kael's shoulder. Blood darkened the Alpha King's sleeve. Ronan grinned. See, he taunted. You're distracted. Kael didn't respond, but something inside him shifted. His wolf surged forward. Not with rage. With purpose. Ronan charged again. This time Kael stepped into the attack instead of away. Their blades locked. For a split second, they stood inches apart. Ronan growled. You're going to die because of her. Kael's voice was quiet. No. Then he twisted the blade. Ronan's eyes widened. Kael's strike was swift. Precise. Final. Ronan Blackmore collapsed onto the courtyard stone. The duel ended in stunned silence. Kael stood over the fallen challenger, breathing slowly. Then he turned to the watching pack. Anyone else? He asked calmly. No one moved. No one spoke. The message was clear. Ironfang Keep still had its king. The crowd slowly began to disperse. Whispers replaced the earlier tension. The rebellion had ended before it truly began. Kael finally turned toward Lyra. She was still standing there. Despite the pain, despite the fear, her eyes searched his face. Are you hurt? She asked quietly. Kael glanced at his shoulder. It's nothing. Lyra frowned. That didn't look like nothing. Kael stepped closer to her. You should be resting. Lyra shrugged weakly. You should be too. For a moment, the fortress noise faded around them. Kael studied her carefully. You meant what you said? Lyra hesitated, then nodded. I won't hide anymore. Kael considered that. Good. Lyra blinked. Good. He nodded once. I don't want a ghost. The wind swept through the courtyard again. For the first time since arriving at Ironfang Keep, Lyra didn't feel invisible. Kael looked over the fortress walls, then back at her. You changed everything, he said quietly. Lyra frowned. I caused chaos. Kael shook his head. No. His gaze softened slightly. You revealed it. Lyra exhaled slowly. The weight she had carried for years finally felt lighter. Around them, Ironfang Keep continued moving, warriors training, servants working, wolves rebuilding their routines. But something had changed. The invisible Omega was invisible no longer. She stood beside the Alpha King now. Not behind him. Not beneath him. Beside him. And every wolf in Ironfang Keep understood the truth. Anyone who threatened her would answer to the king himself. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful werewolf tales like this one, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us what you think about Lyra and Kael. And who knows, the next story might be even more dangerous.